and I'm delighted to talk to everybody. I did this once before, so some of you may have heard some of my thoughts, but I'm going to expand upon them. This is a entrepreneurial discussion, a business discussion. And um, let's start with the concept of rules, because breaking the rules, rewriting the rules is very important to me. And why do I say that? And I'll get to that job that I quit before I started, which is part and parcel of rewriting the rules. But why do I say it's important to break the rules? And by the way, I make a great distinction between the rules and the law. The law, you don't break. The rules, you break at times. Why would you break the rules? Because what are rules? Rules are ways of doing things imposed upon you by others. If it's not the law, meaning, a civic law or the laws of pace that you have to comply with, but if it's not that, it's what people posit to you. These are the 10 rules of success or whatever. They're usually not. They're usually what I call conventional thinking. And after a while, conventional wisdom becomes simply conventions. And everybody follows them because they're out there. And we get used to hearing them and used to believing them. So I want you to challenge, I'm suggesting challenge the rules, because they're, as I said, they are dictums that are imposed upon you by others, and they have no right to do that. And if you're going to be a business person, the greatest thing you can do is challenge the conventional wisdom and think of, well, how do I want to do it? The way most people do it, or the way it's conventionally done, I don't think it's very creative. I don't think it's very effective. It's not the way I want to do it. And so you have full liberty, as I said, again, I do want to give the caveat, when you are agreed to follow a social convention or the laws of a state or a school, obviously you have to follow those. But when somebody tells you, let's take a very simple one, everybody's heard. It's important to have work-life balance. So what do people mean by that? Well, let's just say, for simplicity's sake, half of your day should be focused on work. I'm just making it very simple. And half should be on sleeping, eating, hanging out with friends, doing whatever. I don't believe any such thing exists. There's no such thing as work-life balance to me. Work-life balance is something you should decide. How much do you want to work? And if you really enjoy what you're doing and you're building something of your own, you're not going to think of it as work. You're going to think of it as a joy. I can tell you that Elon Musk doesn't think about work-life balance. He doesn't say, I'm going to spend X amount of hours working and X amount of hours playing. No, because it's all play. And that's to me a perfect example, because some people do follow the work-life balance thing and think that they must devote X amount of hours not to working. And there's no such thing. Somebody said that to you. It has no gravity unless you decide to abide by it. And I say, don't abide by it. That's my thinking. And anytime I started a company, I always, the Christmas tree store was not when I was 10, it was when I was 15. But anytime I started a real company, I was very proud of that Christmas tree store, though. Anytime I started a real company, I always worked for the first 3 years. I never left the office until midnight. Never. A company is an organ. It's an organism. It needs to be fed. It needs to be nurtured. It needs tremendous amount of time and attention. No one else wants it to succeed. Only you want it to succeed. Your competitors don't want it to succeed. Even your friends may not want it to succeed. Your parents may not want it. You don't know. You're the only one who's the master of the success or failure of that entity. And when I always knew that it needed so much of my time and attention, creativity, force, desire, ambition, all that. So I didn't leave until midnight for the first 3 years, each one of those companies. I'm not saying that that's something great. I'm not saying that's the work-life balance you want to have, but it's a rule that you need to have work-life balance, and I'm saying don't have it. Devote yourself to whatever your passion is, all of you, whatever you want to accomplish for yourself, whatever you want to build, whether it's a private company that just something that you find interesting, or something that you also find will make an impact on the world and make the world a better place to live. Whatever it is, give it what you have. Forget about that ridiculous rule that people are trying to impose upon you. And always ask yourself, as part of this exercise, how do I want to do it? What do I see in other companies or ventures that I'm going to go into a particular market? Even if you're going for a job too, by the way, how are people doing it, and what do I think is lacking in the way they do it? And then you can use your creative process to think, I have a better way of doing it, and here's the way I'd like to approach it, and follow that route. From my experience, it's the best way to go. And let me tell you something. I am working with a young man who reached out to me about 4 months ago and asked me, he heard of me, he read my book, Your Marketing Sucks. And he asked me, by the way, that's breaking a rule too, calling a book Your Marketing Sucks. It was published by Random House, a major publisher. They didn't want to use that title. It was not a gratuitous title. A lot of businesses spend a lot of money on terrible marketing. I had to use a word that would get the attention of the reader or the potential reader. And it became a global bestseller. But this young man contacted me about 4 months ago and asked for my help in growing his business. Now, what's his business? He has a window cleaning business. Now, you would think, oh, that's not really a business. But as I started talking to this a young entrepreneur, he started telling me things that amazed me. Because he didn't approach me as you know, he wasn't wearing a suit and tie. It wasn't a sophisticated kind of thing. Except I have a window washing business. So I'm thinking one guy with a bucket and a squeegee. As it turned out, he's got 5 teams of people. Each team has 4 people out every single day, 7 days a week, cleaning windows in high-end homes, either for the builder of the home before he sells it or to the homeowner. And the business is already a $1.5 million business. People don't think you can make $1.5 million cleaning windows. Now, what's the secret? Somehow he knew to treat it as a profession. And I asked him, so tell me the mistake people make when they think about cleaning windows. He says, well, they think the first thing to do is get Windex to clean the window. And he said, well, that's one of the worst things he can do to windows is use Windex on them. And he has a particular special formula that he uses for cleaning windows. Anyway, he sorted out and wants to turn this business that's $1.5 million into a $10 million business. And now I'm getting him started down that road. Now, what's some of the conventional wisdom that he's learned? He came up one day about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, and said he wanted to hire somebody new to manage all the people he has now. So somebody would go to each cleaning site every day and see to it that everything's going well. And I asked him how much he wanted to pay that person. And I asked him to list the duties that person would have. He listed them out for me. And he said, I want to find somebody to do this starting at $75,000 a year, plus a bonus that could reach as much as $40,000 a year if everything goes well. And I said to him, and here's where, so conventional wisdom says when you get a business to where it is now with him, you hand off part of the managerial responsibility to somebody else, which is what he was thinking of doing. And that fits the rules that I'm telling you to challenge. I'm advising you to challenge. And as he went through the list of responsibilities of the person who was going to hire, I listened to what he had to say, And I said to him, you know what? That should be your job. You're not big enough yet to hire somebody for $100,000 a year with bonus to do what you should do. Not because you have the time to do it, but because by going around and looking at all the sites and all of the jobs, what is he going to gain from that? He's going to learn what they do right, what they do wrong, what do the customers think, who's happy, who's not, what better job can they do, where do they fall, short. And so for the last 6 weeks, he's been doing that. And from that, we created a promise, a brand promise, that customers will now promise these 10 things when this company cleans their windows. And I said, these are high end homes. These are homes that are minimum of $1 million homes. He just went out to, okay, I'll tell you another part of this thing. He went out to bid on a job in a $20 million house yesterday on Long Island. And I asked him, how much are you going to? So that's one thing, right? I saved him $100,000 and enriched him by not following the rules and doing the job he was going to farm out by doing it himself. Because before we hire somebody and delegate work, we have to think, should I do that? And will I learn from that? Of course, delegation is an important thing to do ultimately, but in a new business, relatively new business, you've got to learn all of the things yourself so you can teach it to the people who are working on your team. And I don't like to say working for you. I've never said anybody works for me. I don't like that term. I don't like the term boss. I hate all those terms. Anybody who worked in my companies was part of a team. I value them greatly. I wanted them to be tremendously successful, even if they left my company and went on to something else. I felt that if they worked at one of my companies, they should leave more experienced and hopefully smarter they were than when they first came to work in any one of my companies. And I'm very proud to say that many of my former employees text me on my birthdays, ask me how things are going in the holidays. I probably 100 of them that I still have relationships with, and I sold my last business in 2017. So I'm still in business, but not in a formal business anymore. So when he said he's going out to quote on a 20,000 square foot house, I said to him, "What do you think? How do you come up with a quote?" He said, "Well, I look at the size of the windows, how many they are, and how much work and how many uh, men and women, and his teams are men and women, will required. What's the transportation back and forth? And then I know what the cost is going to be of the job. I add up the cost and I put on a 25% margin." I said, "I don't think that's a good idea. What do you think it's going to cost you to do the house on Long Island, the one he went to see yesterday?" This was earlier in the week. What day is this? It was Monday he came over. I think it's going to be $8,000 to do those windows in that house. I said, "What are you going to? That's with your margin built in, right? What are you going to tell the homeowner when you see him on Wednesday?" And he said, "Yeah, $8,000." I said, "Wait a minute. You're acting like a um, estimator. An estimator is somebody in a construction type job where they look at all the elements going into the job and they come up with a price, what they think should be the cost to the customer. And they look at this. There's no square footage with windows, so I made up a term, square glassage. Square glassage is how many panes are there, how much time does it take, etc., all that kind of thing. Um, and he applies the cost per square foot of glassage, etc. So that's how he came up with the $8,000. I said to him, "I wouldn't charge $8,000." He says, "What would you charge?" I said, "I would charge $14,000. $14,000. How can you do that?" I said, "Because the marketplace for all of you is not some yardstick that sits in a book derived from others. they charge $1 per square foot, that means you have to charge $1 per square foot. No. I said, I want you to charge that higher quote because A, you're a terrific company. B, you have very experienced team members. C, you know how to deal with uh, architectural glass, which this house was, and I know about architectural glass. It requires real knowledge to deal with it. So he went out yesterday to. I told him text me after you quote the homeowner and tell me what happened. So a job that he was going to quote for $8,000 because of the rules and because of conventional wisdom, he sold for $16,000. And now you may say to me, well, what about competition? Well, let's say the homeowner would have said to him, wow, that's a lot. He he has to learn to say, which I told him, well, yeah, it might be, but not every window washing firm is the same. We have experience in this and that. This what makes us better. And always be prepared, to negotiate in between. But the proof is in the pudding. Instead of getting $8,000, he got almost double. And so I love that kind of thing. Not because he got the more money only, but because he challenged the rules and had the ammunition to challenge it. So I did say that the title of today's talk with you folks was I forgot exactly why I quit my first job before I even started. It's a kind of a long story, but I'll give you the very short version. When I was about 19, I don't really remember the exact age. When I was about 19, I went to live in Paris by myself. My family had fallen apart in New York. My dad died, my mom left. We had no money and it was terrible. And I was able to get a hold of $300 from some odd jobs I did. And I just went to Paris by myself. But I had a girlfriend, um, and her mom worked in the fashion business. And her mother said that she could set me up with somebody in the fashion business that would give me a job in fashion, which I was interested in fashion. So I played for 2 months in Paris in those days. As a student, you could do a lot for very little money because they gave all kinds of breaks to students in Paris. So I could have a lot of fun, which I did, and I had a great time. And then it was time to go to work. And I walked down the Seine, which is the river that cuts through Paris, to meet the gentleman who was going to give me a job. And I've been loafing around, swimming, having fun, going to clubs, everything like that. And I was very specific in the kind of work I wanted to do. I wanted to understand and learn the marketing/business side of the fashion industry. I did not want to be a designer. I don't have any design skills like that. And I took a long walk because I like Paris as a walking city, and I got to meet the gentleman who owned the company. And the first thing he said to me was, "Where's your tie?" I didn't own a tie, and it was like, "Whoa, that's not what I was expecting." But okay, he had a right to ask for that, certainly. I said, "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't wear one today. If it's necessary, I'll wear it tomorrow. If you're going to hire me, I'll wear it when you want me to." And he said, "Okay." He said, "So let me give you a little glimpse of what you're going to be doing." And I forget exactly what it was, but it had nothing to do with marketing and nothing to do with the business side of fashion. And I said, "I hear you. I know that sometimes as an applicant, you have to do things that were not on your wish list to be able to get a job that will ultimately." But he said, "You're never going to get into that here." Why? "I just don't think it's right for you." The guy never met me before. He knew nothing about me. And he's telling me, your dream of working in the marketing and business side of fashion is not right for you. And so I said, you know what? I don't want to say what I really said, but and I was gone. I was gone in a flash. And he knew that I wasn't very happy about it by the way I quit before I got hired officially. But why am I bringing that up to you? Because let's say I had accepted that job then at 19 or so. a job I didn't really want. It was not a job that would feed the passions inside of me to be a full, excited person about my go entering the workforce for the first time. And before I come back to close this up, my wife graduated from the Newhouse School in Syracuse University, and so the Newhouse School is a marketing and communications school. It's a premier school in it, and she was a great student. And the whole time she was there, she told her professors and everything that she wanted to be a media buyer. No one told her what a media buyer really is, and she was a college girl having fun and doing what you do in college while also, doing well academically. But nobody ever said to her, like, why do you want to be a media buyer? She didn't have any real idea of what it was. And she came out of school. I met her like 2 months later. And she started her job at Gray Advertising, which is a big advertising firm, as a media buyer. And it took her like 3 days to realize I hate this job of media buying. I can't continue. She did continue and try to tough it out for, I don't remember how long, maybe a year. But so she followed the rules for a year. I knew if I would have taken that job in the fashion industry in Paris, I'd be fitting myself into if I was around uh, um, Peg, I'd be fitting myself into a square box that was not fair to me or them. I wanted to go find and I came back home. When I did come back home to the U.S., I started a small media company that became significant enough for me to be able to sell it. It was my first real business. Um, okay. Um, Now I said uh, small box. I said a moment ago. One of the things that you often hear people say is um, the think outside the box. I'm sure you've all heard that before. People tell you, we're working on something. Why don't you think outside the box? Once you get in the box, whatever it is you're thinking about, you get into some thought pattern that is the first thing that comes to your mind, or traditional thinking. Once you're in the box, you can't get out. Once your mind goes into the box and you start thinking about how you're going to approach something. And I don't know what you guys are thinking, what you want for your careers, what kind of companies you want to start, etc. But you want to think about it in a way that is, uh, well, let me explain to you this way. Einstein said, I'm not going to try to explain relativity to you because I don't understand it either. But Einstein said, when the most valuable skill he had was not his scientific skills, but his imagination. He said, because, and this is what he actually said, imagination enables me to encircle the globe. And he always said that when he started on a scientific um, thought process, he started with a fantasy, not an actuality. So, for example, he would think about a giraffe that could fly to Saturn. And he would really do things like this. Now, that's impossible. And he knew that. But it made him think incrementally in reverse engineering. Well, what is possible? Can a giraffe fly? Why not? What is flying? What is time? What is space? That these things are all wound up relating to relativity. But he started off way out there, knowing it couldn't work, but then stretching his mind to work backwards from what can't work. That's a fantasy. Working slowly backwards to what could work. Because no one could have thought through the theory of relativity in a way that, in a straight line form of thinking. So I'm suggesting to you, if you're trying to think of something for, um, let's say you want to start a music company, think about a farm. Think about starting a farm and see where that gets you to back up to a music company. How can you turn a farm into a music company? How do they correlate? What do they have in common? What's different? If you start off with I want to start a music company, well, you can do one of two things. You can read a lot about it. You can call Jay-Z. But if you want to do something that's yours, that's unique, you have to find a fresh way to find something in the solar system, relatively speaking, to give you the spark of an idea that people have not had before. And I always love crystallized ways of thinking something. Steve Jobs of Apple, where he thought of the phone I'm holding now in its first iteration was not of a phone, but he's called it, I'm creating something that's going to put 1,000 songs in your pocket. Now, you're all used to that now. But when this device was first created, the idea of 1,000 songs in your pocket was impossible to comprehend. But what a great way to have his version of a giraffe flying to outer space. Those kind of exercises are, first of all, they're fun, and why shouldn't you have fun? If you're not going to follow the work-life balance nonsense, have fun in everything you're doing. Be passionate about it. And if you're not passionate about it, find a way. What do you love? What excites you? What turns you on? It doesn't even have to look like a business now. It can look like something else. It doesn't matter. If you love being in love, if you love giving love advice, if you love being a great family member, if you love any one of these things, you love being a great friend, there's a business there. Do you think it could turn being a great friend into a business? Absolutely. You know why? So many people are hurt by friendships, don't know how to be good friends, don't know how to reciprocate. Why can't you do that? What it is that you think of in the morning when you wake up or at night, you say, I wanted this because I love doing that, or this makes me feel alive. Every one of those things can be a business. So remember, follow the rules, follow the law, but make your own rules. So now I'm happy to, and if you have any questions, there's no bad questions. I love to talk to anybody who's got some thoughts or ideas.
Thank you, Mark. That's just a good reminder. So everyone, remember, you can actually just raise your hand with the reactions tab, or you can place your questions in the chat, and Sophia will ask the question on your behalf. So please feel free to do so.
I can get things going with a question while some of our students here think of questions, but you talked a bit about how, your wife started media buying and she took the job and realized she didn't like it.
Hated it.
Hated it. Can you give some
advice?
I'm
sorry, detested it.
Can you give some advice to our students? What can they be doing now to figure out what they want to do post-grad? Is it all the internships? Is it interning within different brands within within an industry? Should they try out different industries? What would you recommend to them?
Well, that's a great question. So I would divide it. I would again go against the rules. So internships are great. If you're gonna, but make sure that if you're gonna intern, that they're gonna treat you like a human being. They're not gonna have you get coffee or file. We always had interns in my companies. I told them from day one, you can attend any meeting, internal or client meeting. You can speak at any meeting. Don't be afraid that you don't know anything. Talk, ask questions, be part of this. Walk into anything you want to. You're here to learn, not to file. So make sure that the internship is going to be one where you're treated as an intelligent human being looking to learn, but also looking to contribute. And if somebody looks at you like, how could you contribute? You're just a college kid. Well, use my rule about quit the first job you had before you started. Make sure they're going to treat you that way. And now, some of you on this call may have things that you really love. You may love. I'm sure none of you love farming, but some of you may love the music industry. And some of you may love math, and some of you may love cooking. And some of you may be intrigued by the idea of what can I do with friendships. So don't forget, social media is all about friendships, or the lack thereof, or love ships. You may want to gravitate towards an internship in one of those things that you already like. And I say, fine, that's great. If you love cooking and love food, you want to be in the food industry or fashion, get an internship there. But I would also get another one in something you never thought about that you may find to be fascinating. Just to take another moment here, I'm working right now with a team, an artificial intelligence team. We've been working on it for the last year on something. And one of the main reasons I got involved is because I started thinking about a fifth grade girl in the New York City public school system now. I don't have great admiration for the New York City public school system right now. And let's say this girl comes from a disadvantaged family, and let's say she has a latent aptitude for astronomy. No one's going to know. No one's going to ask her. And it'll never be drawn out of her. The AI product that I've been involved with, that we're actually coming to release, and will identify without her knowing it that she has an interest in astronomy, and will feed her more and more. The avatar in the AI based product will feed her more and more knowledge about astronomy, and we'll be able to see that she's continuously showing more and more attention to it. And she may want an internship at NASA. So, I mean, I just do it. It's also so great to get a great mentor. Like one of the best mentors I had, folks, was I worked in a supermarket in high school. I had a lot of really terrible jobs. Porter in a hospital, busboy in restaurants. I always tried to be the best, though. The best porter, the best busboy. But I got a job as working in a produce department in the supermarket. And I was blessed by the fact that the manager of the produce department loved produce. I mean, he was so proud. He would be like a rocket engineer at NASA. Every melon, every citrus fruit, he would spend so much time explaining the fruit to me, telling me how to tell if it's ripe, giving me romantic stories about these things. And I loved it. I learned so much. I mean, he said to me, look, Mark, don't go to college. You're born to be a produce manager. I mean, it was very sweet, and it was very nice. And I knew I didn't want to do that for a career, but I never forget the mentor that I had. And even though I was paid, high school wages, it was really an internship. And I learned so much, not just about produce, but about a man in his late 50s who took an interest in a kid to want to romance me about fruit. It's just, to me, he's one of the great life stories. You need to find people like that. You need to find your own produce manager. And I guarantee all of you, one more thing, I guarantee all of you that if you worked on a farm this summer, you'd love it. You'd come away with so much knowledge. You'd learn things you never knew would interest you and that will be valuable to you in your life. So, do you want me to take these questions?
I can read them out loud.
Okay.
So thank you for answering that question. Thank you. So we have a question from Emily Wilson. What advice would you give to someone who keeps getting offered opportunities in one facet of an industry, yet trying to work in another?
It's up to you to get the offers in the endeavor that you're seeking. It's not the marketplace's job to read your mind. So find out who a decision maker is at some level that could give you an internship or a job or whatever you're talking about. Get somebody's name or 5 people's names and do the most powerful thing you can do. Write them a heartfelt letter and explain to them 1 page, no longer than a page, why you want to work in that industry. And I guarantee you, if you get 5, I can't guarantee you realistically, but I'm quite sure that if you write to 5 people a really good letter about why you want to work in whatever industry it is, one of them will give you a try. You know, I just was reading about a guy who wanted to work for Warren Buffett. I guess you all know who that is, most famous investor in the world. Warren Buffett doesn't need anybody, doesn't want anybody. But this guy said, wrote him a letter, said, Mr. Buffett, if you let me work for you, I'll pay you $500 a week. And Buffett said, no, no thanks. But then he thought about it, and like 6 months later, I think, he gave the guy a job. You know why? The guy didn't follow the rules. The guy showed where his heart was. The guy, what I'm saying to you now, whoever asked that question, who asked that question, Sophia? What's the person's name?
Emily
Emily.
Wilson.
So, Emily, it's you find that person and you tell them how much you want to work in that industry, and you show them in that letter, and you say, I'll come to visit you anytime. I'll speak to you anytime. And in fact, I'll work for free. You know why you can say I work for free? No one can let you work for free. And if you have to work for free to show what you've got for a month, would you do it? If you won't, then you're not really interested. I'd do it. I think there's another question there.
Yes. Jordan Stewart asked, how do you stimulate imagination?
You wet your finger and stick it into an electric socket in your house, and you'll definitely get a shock to your system, and you'll be thinking of all kinds of different things. Now, how do you stimulate? So that's a very good question too. I've always found the way to stimulate creative, let's just call it creative thinking, original thinking, is not to try to do it. So my best ideas throughout my career have come through being on vacation, and I'm in my home right now, or to be in the back of my home by my pool, listening to music, not working, listening and getting carried away by the music. Determine not to think of a new idea. Allow your mind to float. It'll take you in great places, to great places. If you sit there with a laptop or a pad and say, okay, I'm going to come up with a great idea now, it ain't going to happen. Float. Try not to think of a good idea. Let the music carry you, or whatever it is that transports you, whether it's sitting by a stream and listening to the water, whatever. I've always found that to be the best way.
We have a question from Brooke George. What are some things you wish you knew before starting a business?
Brick?
Brooke.
Oh, Brooke. Brooke, and everybody. I didn't know a damn thing. I didn't know anything. The best way to learn about a business you want to start is to get your ass up and start it. Once you're doing it the wrong way, the marketplace is going to tell you, hey, Mark, hey, Brooke, you're doing this the wrong way. The market's going to tell you that. What are you going to do? Ask some advisor? What are you going to read a book? Nobody can fly a plane by reading a book. If I gave you a book, Brooke, could you fly a plane? No. No one can. Think about it that way. So when I said nothing, obviously I knew some things. I knew some things about life. I knew some things. I grew up in the streets. I knew I was born in the Bronx. I grew up in Queens. I knew the streets. I knew people. I knew competition. I knew, you know, toughness. Uh, I knew things, but specific to any business, and all the 6 businesses I've had have all been different. But you really learn them by flying the plane, not by reading the book. I hope that is helpful to you, because you learn so quickly that the way you thought it was going to work isn't working the way you wanted it to work, and people will tell you, or you'll see in the results. I'm trying to think if yeah, okay, I'll tell you. Let me give you. Can I give? What time to give an example? Okay, so this was a stupid idea, really dumb idea. I'm embarrassed to say this idea. But when I first started my first real company, I said, I'm only going to hire Ivy League students. That's it. And so hired Ivy League grads, I mean. So I hired the first 20 people from Harvard, Yale, Princeton, blah, blah, blah. Now, nothing against the Ivy League, my sons went there, but they were horrible. They were horrible. And what I started to learn was that the people that we hired, I always like to hire a lot of young people because I have great faith in them. And I always had, not that it was a plan, but it just turned out that we always had not equal amounts of men and women, but always more women. And my last company, my chief operating officer was a woman who I hired after the day she graduated from college. And in 4 years, she was a second in command in a company with 172 people. Because I've told meritocracy to me, if you're great, you're smart, no one's going to stand your way. No one's going to give seniority nonsense to you. I don't believe in that. I don't believe seniority has any place in anything. It should the title, the money, the rewards, everything should go to the person or persons who are best. So I think somebody had another question I saw.
Yes, Diara Alioun, I apologize if I mispronounced that, but Diara is asking, how do you find what inspires you and bring that into the professional world or turn it into a career?
Well, what I would say is that you need to ask yourself, who do you admire? There's got to be somebody you admire or people that you admire. And ask yourself, what is it about this person that could be a historical figure or somebody now? What do you admire? So you guys are too young to know about this, but when I was a kid, polio was a dreaded thing in New York. Even in the elementary schools, there were 2 classes, groups were set up to get the vaccine for polio. It was a very big thing. Parents were scared about it. Kids were getting it. It was a really horrible thing. Worse in many ways than in COVID. And the scientist from nowhere, Dr. Jonas Salk, developed the vaccine for it. And I was probably 8, and I saw him on TV with the president of the United States, this man who protected all of us from getting polio. And I was tremendously enamored by him, Jonas Salk. And I started learning about him. Here's the most important thing I learned. This is about the rules too, folks. He was in University of Pittsburgh Medical School. He was in one of his classes in medical school when a vaunted professor said, there can never be a vaccine for a virus. There can never be a vaccine for a virus. He said, okay, there'll be a vaccine for a virus. That's interesting to know. Went back to his dorm a few months later. He said, I wonder why that is the case. I wonder if that's really true. So he went to his lab and started working. And he developed the vaccine for the virus that causes polio. I became enamored by him. I didn't become a scientist. It's not in my DNA. But what I became was what I call a serial skeptic. Somebody tells me something that can't be done, and I say, well, wait a minute. Wait just 1 minute. Why? How come it can't be done? I don't believe you. I'm going to go see for myself. There are people all over the place who are telling all of you at your young ages, you can't do certain things. And I say to you, don't believe them. So to the question of how do you get some inspiration, start with who do you admire? You've learned about historical figures. You see figures in the present. You see people who are social media influencers. Some of them you have to admire and like because you're following them. What about it that they're doing? What can you learn? What can you bring? They do it. You can do it. Let's say you love singing, but you're a terrible singer. Can you make a social media presence as the bad singer, the horrible singer? You could do that. You could probably be so popular too by singing miserably. People would love that. So, but I'm saying start with something you believe because somebody has tickled something in you that you say, I love that. I like that. I'd like to do that. You don't have to copy them. You could do an offshoot of that.
Do we have any other questions? No, well, you know what? There's actually something I'd like to share because I'm listening to your sage advice, Mark. So I put together just about maybe 3 takeaways that really resonated with me. And I'll just share them with the group. Please feel free to write them down if you like. But number 1, follow the law, but make your own rules. Am I quoting you correctly, Mark?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, all right, that's the first. Then there were a few questions that you posed. You said, what do you love? What excites you? And what turns you on? And so the answers to these questions could be actually a business idea in bloom. So that's another thing that resonated
It's
with
the
me.
genesis of the best businesses.
Yes,
Starts there.
yes, that's right. Thank you. So that's number 2 for me. Number 3, have fun in everything you do. Very, very important. And number 4, allow your mind to float. It will take you to great places. So in terms of sparking creativity and imagination, I think that was a great one as well. And this is the last one that I wrote down. The best way to learn about a business you want to start is to just get up and start it.
Right.
Okay. All
I
right.
said, get your ass up and start it, but you
Yeah,
wouldn't.
yeah. I kind of avoided the expletive there, but I get what you're saying.
But that was a very important part of it, but okay.
Yes, boy. But thank you for those pearls of wisdom. Definitely.
I'll just say if I have one more
Hmm.
less than a minute, I would say, as I told you all, that so have fun with everything you do. That sounds like a platitude and a Pollyanna type of thing, but it's not. I'm not a Pollyanna in any way. So when I had some of these horrible jobs in high school, the worst one was being a porter in a children's hospital, where every week that I came, I worked there on the weekends. Usually, one of the kids had died. It was a dark place. Um, it was me and 40 nuns and these sick kids. And how could I have fun with that? Fun is the wrong word, but I realized that their lives in that dark place at that dark time in their life, I could make it somewhat better if I was a great porter. If I wasn't a kid dragging a mop around and saying, I can't wait till I get out of here, which I couldn't wait to get out of there. But when I was there, I wanted to impress people that somebody cared about them. And that gave me the ability to enjoy everything I was doing. And I'd come out saying, I didn't do a job today. I made a contribution. So sometimes it looks like it's really hard to enjoy things, but if you find an angle, like you're going to be the best at this or the best at that, or you're going to be the fastest, or you're going to use it as a great learning experience, then it becomes so much bigger than it looks like. And, when you just break it down to a job where you move this for there and this for that, you realize that you're learning so much at everything you do. And that learning's got to be everybody on this call and everybody and everybody you will know and everybody you talk to. Learning has to be the centerpiece of your life. So I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mark Stevens. Why don't we all give Mark Stevens a round of applause? Thank you, Mark, for taking time out of your schedule to do this. And for everyone who has joined us, I just would like to say, please continue to follow our communication channels, follow us on social or through our listserv. That's how you'll find out about more opportunities to engage with Mark and about other great things happening here at the Lubin School of Business. So we're giving you back about maybe 6 minutes of your time. Use it wisely and have fun in everything you do. Thanks again. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Take care,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.